Sim racing is incredibly diverse. There are so many different ways of going about it, so many different racing disciplines that you can partake in a virtual setting. You don't need to spend millions on buying hundreds of real cars and booking out hundreds of circuits across the world to be able to experience them in the world of sim racing. So, if you're a real racing fan and you're just getting into sim racing and you have a preferred discipline or type of motorsport that you enjoy the most, this video is going to be for you, because I'm going to be running through many different disciplines of racing and telling you how you can go about enjoying that particular discipline within the sim racing world. Just bear in mind that this is a PC specific guide, so we're not going to be talking about Gran Turismo in this video, and I'm going to try and keep things nice and snappy so we can get through as many different types of racing as possible. We're going to start off with probably the most obvious of them all if you've got any sim racing experience, and that is GT3 racing, or single class GT racing to be a little bit more broad. Now, I'm obviously playing this right now on Assetto Corsa Competizione because the Ford Mustang just dropped this week and I wanted an excuse to try it out, but you can basically do this on any sim of your choice, within reason. Any sim that offers multiple disciplines. This is the official GT World Challenge game, but if you were to play the original Assetto Corsa, iRacing, R-Factor 2, Race Room, Automobilista 2, any of these games, and many more, you will be able to do GT3 racing. And that theory does cross over to many other GT classes as well. GT3 is the most popular, but many games have a Porsche Carrera Cup car, GT4 cars, ACC even has GT2 cars. So basically GT racing, you're sorted, you don't have to think too hard. Now, although GT racing, and specifically GT3s, are the most popular discipline within the world of sim racing, it's probably Formula 1 that's the most popular and well-known discipline within the world of real racing. Now, if you want to experience Formula 1 on a sim, there are of course the official Formula 1 games, where they have all of the correct liveries, teams, drivers, career modes, online and offline, everything you're going to want, even a Formula 2 mode in recent games. But it's worth noting that's not your only route. There are plenty of Formula 1 inspired cars available on some of the more hardcore sims like the Formula Pro car and R-Factor 2, AMS2 and Race Room also have their variations of a Formula 1 car, and Assetto Corsa, even though a bit older now, has some official Ferrari Formula 1 cars in there as well. Probably the best alternative option, in my opinion, is actually iRacing, because they have a couple of modern Mercedes Formula 1 cars that have been laser scanned. They are incredible to drive, and obviously you can take part in some intense F1 style online racing. Now, whilst we're on the subject of Formula cars, you might not be a massive Formula 1 fan, but you might enjoy a little bit of Formula E. Now, that is harder to come by, but not impossible, because R-Factor 2 actually has all 3 generations of Formula E car as downloadable content, as well as a handful of Formula E tracks to get stuck into. Now, if you're a fan of touring car racing, on the other hand, R-Factor 2 is still going to be of interest to you, because we have official British Touring Car Championship content, and it's a huge amount of fun. Now, it's not the only option when you're looking for good touring car racing. iRacing has got plenty of modern TCR cars, so you get a more globalized touring car experience. We've also got the likes of Race Room, which has its fair share of touring cars, from the modern TCR stuff to the older S2000 stuff, and the officially sanctioned WTCR content as well. So plenty of options out there for touring car fans. And for me, being in the UK, it has to be R-Factor 2 and the BTCC content that wins for me. Getting distracted as per usual. That deals with that problem. Moving from short sprint races to the opposite end of the scale, endurance racing. Now, this can of course take many forms. There's many different car classes within the world of endurance racing. You can race GTs or prototypes, for example. There's also single driver endurance races or driver swap races. iRacing is once again a great bet if you want to jump in some driver swap endurance races in multiple disciplines or classes. ACC and R-Factor 2 also has the ability to do driver swap races, but it tends to be more during private events rather than just public lobbies that you can join in the same way that you can with iRacing. So it's a little bit more complex, but the racing is just as good. Looking specifically at the different car classes and series within the world of endurance racing, if you're a big fan of the World Endurance Championship, then Le Mans Ultimate is definitely going to be your go-to game. If you're a fan of IMSA over in America, then iRacing has official IMSA content, and also AMS2 has an official IMSA partnership as well, so you can do either or. You can also do Le Mans on AMS2, or Le Mans on iRacing. There are many options and a lot of crossover in this particular department. AMS2 is also good for just GT racing rather than prototypes. There are plenty of GT cars and classes available. Obviously ACC is the king of GT racing, so that's certainly a possibility, but unfortunately there are no prototypes within the world of ACC. With endurance racing, I could go on. I mean, R-Factor 2, Race Room, Assetto Corsa, they all have numerous endurance racing focused classes and multi-class capabilities, so basically just take your pick. Road cars are a little bit harder to come by, but sim racing still has you covered. We all know Assetto Corsa is pretty old by now, but it still reigns supreme when it comes to road car sim racing. I particularly love taking any road car out on a Nordschleife style track day. It feels realistic, it feels rewarding, and it's hugely enjoyable. You can also drive road cars in other games. AMS2 has some of them, and other titles do have the odd road car, but for me it still has to be Assetto Corsa. Oh, not just for the cars, but also for the various routes you can take, and obviously the modding scene as well. So far, we've very much been focused on road courses, so what about the world of rallying? Well, there are plenty of options in this department. The most recent major rally game launch was EA Sports WRC, and that has a plethora of content, new and historic, also a huge range of game modes as well. But if you want something that's slightly more hardcore, it's worth looking into the older title, Dirt Rally 2.0. It's just a little bit trickier and in some ways a little bit more realistic from a driver's perspective. However, we can actually go a step further than that. We'll have to go back further in time to a game called Richard Burns Rally, but for me that provides the ultimate rally realism for what we've got right now. It is incredible. You do need to do a lot of work behind the scenes. You have to make sure you install up-to-date mods, install up-to-date graphics, but do your research on Richard Burns Rally, and if you're a rally fan who wants to experience immersive, realistic rally physics, I guarantee you it will be worth your time. So go and find out more about it, and report back in the comments with how you find it. So we've talked about rally, we've talked about circuit racing. What about combining the two things together in the form of Rallycross, which is a discipline many people love doing, and there are plenty of ways of doing it through the world of sim racing. It used to be more limited. It used to be Project Cars 2 was actually really good for Rallycross, and also Dirt Rally 2.0, they had the official WRX license, so you had officially sanctioned cars, teams, drivers, and that was pretty epic. That, to be fair, is still probably your go-to if you want offline Rallycross experience, but if you want to race online, go and check out iRacing, because in the last few years they introduced a Rallycross license, Rallycross cars, Rallycross circuits. I've not really given them a fair go, so I'm pretty rubbish. But it's really cool to be able to essentially have your own Rallycross career, as it were, racing against other people online. If you enjoy a slightly more extreme challenge, something a bit more Dakar-y, then there are some rally raid options for you as well. Primarily, there is of course a Dakar-specific game, which is great, or you can try something like this, which is BeamNG.Drive. It's got various challenges that really do give you a feeling of just how difficult. I genuinely didn't even know that was going to happen. I couldn't see it. But it's a perfect demonstration of why giving it a go on something like BeamNG.Drive is well worth your time. It's a proper challenge, and it's still satisfying if you get it wrong. Stop bouncing. I now want to move on and talk about historic content. It's worth bearing in mind that most sims that offer multiple disciplines of racing also contain various forms of historical content. The likes of R-Factor 2, iRacing, Race Room all have plenty of historic vehicles. But for me, the two standout titles in this particular category have to be Automobilista 2, or AMS2, and Assetto Corsa. In terms of the specifics, Automobilista 2 just has everything. You've got vintage Formula 1 cars from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. You've also got vintage circuits like this 70s version of Interlagos. There's also historic versions of Imola and Spa and all sorts of stuff. But it's not just Formula cars, there's 90s GT1 cars, 80s Group C cars, there's touring cars, there's just everything. And it's a similar story with Assetto Corsa, to be honest. Especially with old endurance racers. Not quite the depth, I would say, as AMS2. I can't see a thing. But certainly a lot to pick from there as well. And obviously with the world of modding, well, you can find pretty much any historic piece of content you want. It's the usual story. Maybe you get your motorsport fix a little bit closer to home. There are plenty of popular national series that have popped up in various sims over the years, so let's talk about a few of these. If you're a fan of Brazilian stock cars, then look no further than Automobilista 2 and even iRacing for an alternative option on that front. If you're into Aussie V8s or V8 supercars as they used to be called, again, iRacing is your friend, AMS2 is your friend as well. For DTM fans, Race Room has always been the home of DTM content, whether it was the early 2010s silhouette cars that were just absolutely magnificent, or the more modern GT3 variants. And another shout out for something I mentioned earlier, the British Touring Car Championship. If you want to get your BTCC fix, then look no further than R Factor 2. It would be remiss of me not to mention some of the Japanese series as well. Obviously Super Formula is incredibly popular and you can drive those cars on the iRacing service. Super GT on the other hand, it's a little bit more complicated. Sadly, we don't really have a Super GT presence within a PC racing game. For that, you're going to need Gran Turismo 7 and a console. The closest you can get to it is probably the old school DTM cars, which you can get in Race Room, as I mentioned, but there's also a Class 1 BMW on R Factor 2 available, which is what the BMW DTM car would have been had they not transitioned over to GT3 cars. So there's still plenty of options to drive something similar. When it comes to American national motorsport, however, thankfully on PC, iRacing has you covered, because its service has all sorts of ovals, from short ovals to super speedways, to 1 mile, half mile, tri-oval, whatever you can think of. And you can race cup cars, Xfinity cars, trucks, street stocks, late models, legends, the list goes on. There are even a handful of dirt ovals if that's more your thing. I certainly have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to those. And then in terms of open wheelers, you've got IndyCar, so you could do IndyCar oval racing or IndyCar road racing as well. I should be clear, it's not just iRacing that has IndyCar stock car content. I mean, the likes of Automobilista 2, R Factor 2 also have variations of IndyCars. But in terms of a full online racing ecosystem and community, iRacing is definitely the way to go if you're into your American national motorsport. Right, we've already covered a lot of racing disciplines in this video, but if your preferred discipline hasn't come up yet, maybe it's a little bit more niche or a little bit more different to some of the stuff we've been talking about, don't worry, because I'm going to run through some of those for you to finish things off. Like karting, for example. Now, if you're looking to use your sim for karting, it's a bit different. Obviously, there are karting game modes within some of the sims that we've talked about in this video and some of the main well-known sims, but there are also bespoke karting simulators out there. We've got stuff like this, which is Kartcraft. You've also got Kart Racing Pro, and then you've got something called Kart Sim, which is essentially a mod within R Factor 2 that you can get your hands on. All three of these are brilliant in their own right. They all have different benefits and drawbacks, but it's worth doing some research to find basically the ideal karting sim for you. I'm going to group 3 different disciplines together now: hill climbing, drag racing, and drifting. Now, if you're interested in all 3 of these, again, Assetto Corsa is going to be a great port of call. With mods or without mods, you're going to be able to do all 3 things. There are other drag racing specific games. There's an official NHRA game, for example. And in terms of drifting, there are bespoke drift focused games as well, but Assetto Corsa just has it for me. Even for hill climbing, there are other options out there as well. You've got the likes of BeamNG. In fact, BeamNG, pretty good for all of these things. You can do hill climbing on it, you can do drifting on it, and you can do drag racing on it, so that's another good all-rounder. In fact, speaking of BeamNG, there's more to be said about BeamNG.drive, because as well as being great for all of those alternative disciplines and the stuff we talked about earlier, rally raid, things like that, it's also just the best when it comes to outright fun and laughter. I mean, BeamNG.drive with friends, if you're interested in crashing on sims and causing chaos, causing carnage, not having to worry about injuring anyone or paying for damages, BeamNG.drive is your sim of choice. It's phenomenal. The physics, both the driving physics and the crashing physics, are just second to none. You can do stuff like this, where you do cop chases as the robber or the cop. Oh no! Watch my wrists. Okay, it turns out you can get injured. We're going to try that again. If you are into big crashes on sims, I'd also recommend the likes of Wreckfest. Grid Legends also has a Destruction Derby DLC as well, which is worth looking into, but for me, the king for sure, BeamNG.drive. Let's do this properly this time. There we go. Not going anywhere. If you weren't aware before of just how diverse sim racing can be, then you're probably aware now. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Obviously there will be plenty of things I still haven't mentioned, so be sure to leave some comments letting us know of your favourite disciplines or classes that I haven't talked about in this video. The truth is though, there's probably going to be either an official version or a mod for whatever car, track or discipline that you're interested in. You just need to find it, so do some research, have a look online, and hopefully you can find the exact combination that you've been dreaming of experiencing for your whole life. If this video has helped you find something new that you love within the world of sim racing, or helped you just hone in on what will be your preferred sim racing title, then do leave us a like, show your appreciation, and also subscribe to this Race Anywhere channel for more sim racing content in the future. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great week.